we have a really, really interesting afternoon lined up for you folks. A couple of questions before we get started. Is how many of you are familiar with the Alberta Prosperity Project? Can I have a show of hands? Okay, that's probably about 60%. So that means about 40% of you are not yet familiar with the Alberta Prosperity Project. Is that correct? Let me see hands. Anybody not familiar? Yeah. Okay, next question. How many of you are in favor of an independent Alberta? How many of you are against an independent Alberta and want a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada? That's easy to count, not a one. Okay, well, my wife wrote this out for me, and it says good evening, so I'm going to start by saying good afternoon. And welcome to an event that will inform you about Alberta's position in Confederation and the solutions that are there for a new Alberta. Proudly brought to you by the Alberta Prosperity Project. And Max is just bothering the heck out of me. He says, get over there so you can be seen on the camera so that people all over Alberta can see who you are. And that means the police will be here shortly. Before we begin, just a little housekeeping. Anybody not know where the snacks are? Did you find the chili? Okay, good enough. Emergency exits. Anywhere there's a door, it's an exit, because out on the other side of the door is outside. So there's one there, one over there, and the big door at the front. And washrooms are the biffy standing on the trailer back there, so don't slip when you try to climb the stairs. So if you're here because you believe independence is the best and only solution to Alberta's current situation, please be sure that you sign up for the Alberta Prosperity Project, your intent to vote yes on a referendum on independence for Alberta. That's very important because when we finally get around to collecting signatures, we want to know who you are, where you are, and we want those signatures on the petition for the referendum as quickly as we can. Okay? This presentation we have tonight features some really good speakers, but I will ask that you don't interrupt the speakers with any questions. There will be an opportunity to question the speakers after we're finished. So we don't want any disruptions. If there's anybody here who's rabidly against independence, please keep it down. We don't want any conflict. We don't want any argument. If you have questions, we'll be glad to answer them at the end of the presentation. My name is John Reel. I am the regional leader for the Alberta Prosperity Project for the Ponoka-Lacombe region. Patty Vold is here somewhere. Where is she? There she is, right there. Patty Vold is the one of 11 provincial representatives for the Alberta Prosperity Project, and she is ostensibly my boss, but don't tell my wife. And of course, we have Mitch Sylvestre, who is the CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project, a founding member, along with I think Dennis Modry and Jeffrey Rath. So you have some really wonderful people here, some excellent resources, and take advantage of it after we finish the presentation. Patty, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you all for coming. As the days and weeks go by, we realize how important this all is. I have 14 grandchildren from the age of 20 to 3 months, and I don't want them to live in poverty. I want my 11-year-old grandson to be able to buy a house if he wants to. And so I don't do it for myself. I do it for them, and I do it for your kids and your grandkids, and because this is so important, because we see what the federal government is bringing down. And it's basically communism, if that's the word you want to use. More rules, more regulations, and less for us. We farm in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and the rules are pretty much the same. In Saskatchewan, we'll be coming right along, and so my grandkids in Saskatchewan are They are fighting for this. My 11-year-old grandson came the other day and said, Nana, when is Alberta separating? He's a listener. And so I sat with him, and I talked to him about equalization, and I had a trifold brochure, and I said, you go home and you look at this. I try not to talk about it at home all the time, but he had been listening at some point, and he came on his own. He wants it. He's 11. When can I vote for this? He says, I said, you have to be an eligible voter in Alberta. Well, I was born here. I'm an eligible. I said, no, you have to be 18. He was so disappointed. So those of you who have kids and grandkids, talk to them. Just talk to them. Show them, shove a brochure in their face and say, have a look at this, if they can read. It's important to get those of you who can especially vote on board and talking to your friends. You don't know how important that is, because we all live in our own little bubbles. We have to get our grandparents and our great-grandparents' courage on to talk to people out of the blue. Lynn and I were at Penhold gas station, and I pulled out trifold brochures out of my purse, which is the only reason I carry a purse now, so I can carry them. And there was 3 guys there, and I just said, you guys know anything about Alberta Independence? One guy says, other than we need it. I could hand them brochures. First point of contact. Takes at least 3. So thank you all for coming, and I'll shut up now. John, you should never give me the mic.
I'm learning that. Thanks very much, Patty. We have Max over here. Max is streaming this live, so if you have questions, you'll be famous all over the province. Okay? So just so you know that you will be live all over the province if you stand up and ask a question. Now, it's customary for APP events that we open these events with a prayer. So if you would bear with me, we'll have a short prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here and ask that thy Spirit accompany us as we seek truth and information that will provide us with a roadmap to prosperity, faith, and family for those of us that are here, for our children, for our grandchildren, and for all of those who stand in need of living in a society which is free for people to do what they wish to do in accordance with the basic laws of respect that are outlined in the Scriptures. We ask this blessing upon this company, that we might be open to new ideas, and do so in the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. So, thank you very much for that. This movement began in May of 2021 in a humble oil field shop in Nisku. Is that correct? In Nisku? I used to live in Leduc. A group of Albertans, tired of the inefficiencies of our provincial leadership and government overreach by the federal government, decided it was time to act. And out of those humble beginnings, the Alberta Prosperity Project was born, and here we are today. Tonight, as we get started, I should say this afternoon, my wife wrote tonight, so it's her fault. We'd like to acknowledge some people and thank our volunteers. First off, I would like to specifically thank Lacey. She has put an awful lot of work and effort into organizing this and inviting you all to be here to hear this presentation. So for Lacey and her family, thank you so much. Our greatest asset is our volunteers. So those who have helped and organized throughout the entire province on occasion for these types of events, thank you very much. And if you feel an urge, please volunteer. We could use the help. We always need volunteers. Volunteers are vital to our success, and we need them desperately. Just another point to make out, everybody associated with this project is a volunteer. Am I correct, Mitch? Everybody. From the CEO down to the canvassers at the so-called bottom of the pyramid, everybody is a volunteer. So thank you all very much. Now, our speakers for this evening are, pardon me? Did I say this evening? Joanne, why did you write this way? This is my wife's fault. Well, I'm used to doing these in the evening, that's why, so it's not her fault, really. We have Mitch Sylvestre, the Chief Executive Officer of the Alberta Prosperity Project. We have Tanya Clemens, an Alberta farmer. And Tim Hoven, did he get here yet? He's 6 minutes away. Oh, darn, and he's our first speaker, so we'll have to wait a few minutes. No. Kathy Flett, on behalf of the Women's Independence Network, stands together with all Albertans to promote freedom. What about Kathy Flett? What am I talking about? Just a minute. I'm reading my wife's again. Tell me who you are.
Do you want me to come up here?
Yeah, she can introduce
Okay. Hello, I'm Tanya Clemens. Thank you for coming this afternoon, for giving up your Sunday afternoon to participate in some civil discourse centered around the best path forward for Alberta. I'm so glad that Mitch could be here today because he has had a week. And in the timeline of an Alberta-loving, freedom-seeking, business-owning, movement-leading, passionate Albertan, he has had a week. And we are also fortunate to hear him speak tonight on Alberta's pivotal point in history tonight. Also, thank you to Lacey, and I imagine a whole crew that came with you to organize this event and to invite all of you to it, and for her love of Alberta. I too love Alberta so very much, and I believe that we have a video prepared by APP that starts a lot of our events, if that's possible to cue up. Yeah.
Well, hi there, this is Jim Ferguson of Freedom Train International, and I have a gift for the people of Alberta. We stand with you, Alberta. We stand with all the Albertans in their quest for independence and sovereignty. We hope you like it, and I want you to know that patriots all around the world are watching Alberta. Right now, we stand with you, and I hope you enjoy this. Just remember, they can't kill the mountain, they can't drown the plain, they can't burn the spirit that won't be chained. We'll speak soon.
So, as the intro said, I am Tanya Clemens. I'm a farmer. I'm nothing special or extraordinary or different than anyone else that is here. I love Alberta like I imagine most of you do if you're here. This is my Alberta flag, the one I proudly fly on my combine at harvest. And every morning that I've walked across the field this past harvest, I see this flag hanging on the top of my combine. And I see my family working together in the fields, one running the grain cart, another on the combine, one hauling a load in the semi, and in those moments, that's where I feel the most peace. I'm not thinking about Ottawa, I'm not thinking about politics, I'm thinking about the land, the sky, the work before me, and the people that I love. And that's what freedom feels like to me, in my little corner of Alberta, where my work and my way of life are respected and honored, where my faith, family, and freedom are cherished. But over the past decade, that freedom feels more fragile than ever. Every year, Ottawa reaches a little bit further into our homes, our schools, our farms, our lives, and our bank accounts. And make no mistake, when they mess with the people who grow the food, they mess with every family that eats it. So I stand before you tonight not as a politician, not as an economist, but as a farmer, a teacher, and a mom. I stand here as someone who loves this province with everything I've got. I'm one of a very, very many people who volunteer their time with the Alberta Prosperity Project, hoping that our message will resonate with you and that you will join us in standing up for Alberta. The Alberta Prosperity Project is a grassroots, nonprofit movement formed to educate Albertans about sovereignty and to build support for holding a binding referendum on Alberta becoming an independent nation. I first joined the APP a few years ago after volunteering at an event in Calgary and hearing Dr. Dennis Modry speak for the first time. And at this event, Dr. Modry shared a few statistics that were quite alarming about the prosperity of Albertans and how much we've been denied by our federal government. The one thing that still sticks with me is that if every Albertan had never been subjected to the National Energy Program of Trudeau Sr., and if we'd never been subjected to equalization payments, then for the last 40 plus years, we could have been operating with an 8 to 10% flat income tax rate. And when that number sinks in and you think about what that means for your family, for the retirement age of your parents, for yourself, what that would have meant for your community, it is actually really sickening. Dr. Modry also authored the rationale for restructuring Alberta's relationship within Canada. And that's available on the albertaprosperity.com website as well, if you'd like to read it. And through reading this, I saw that there was a path out of this mess, and I actually had hope. So I joined the APP. I sat on the communications and the operations team and became a director on the board, and now I find myself as a spokesperson for the APP. And our mission at APP is rooted in the belief that Alberta has been economically and politically disadvantaged within Confederation for over a century, and that independence offers a path to greater freedom, prosperity, and self-determination. And so that's why I'm here. I want more than survival for Alberta families. I want prosperity, I want dignity, and I want freedom for us all. So let me ask you this. When you think about Canada today, do you believe that Ottawa is honoring and respecting your faith, your family, and your freedom? If you answer no or you're shaking your head, then you already understand why Alberta has to stand up. From the very beginning, Alberta was never meant to be treated as an equal. In 1904, it was Clifford Sifton, who was the federal minister who was responsible for bringing us into Confederation. He is attributed with saying, "We desire that the great trade and wealth of the prairies shall go to enrich our people in the East, to build up our factories and our places of work, and in every legitimate way contribute to our prosperity." That wasn't about Alberta's prosperity. That was about using Alberta to fund and colonize Ontario and Quebec. And decade after decade, Ottawa has carried out that plan. Probably the clearest example is in 1980 when Pierre Trudeau's energy minister, Marc Lalonde, rolled out the National Energy Program. lots of you look like you're too young to remember that, but maybe some of you do. He admitted that the plan was to stop Alberta from becoming the economic powerhouse of the country. So think about that for a second. Ottawa saw that Alberta was rising, and they still decided to cut us down. And they've kept cutting ever since. Since 1961, Alberta has sent over $700 billion more to Ottawa than we receive back in any kind of services. And 2 out of every 3 of those dollars has been sent to Quebec. Every single year, we lose $20 to $28 billion. And that works out to be about $6,000 per Albertan. So in an average family of 4, that's $24,000 that would be sent out to Canada, to Ottawa, that we receive nothing back in services for. That's $24,000 a lot of our families could use, money that you've earned and money that you'll never see again. On top of that, Ottawa blocks pipelines and scares away investment. Since 2006, Alberta has lost $200 billion in projects. And with the multiplier effect, that actually works out to be $1.25 trillion that is gone. And because Ottawa won't let us sell our oil and gas to the world, Alberta loses another $26.5 billion every single year. Remember that LNG request from foreign countries that came to Canada that we turned down because it wasn't in our business plan? Well, the US picked that up. They picked it up for $750 billion. So now we sell LNG to the US for about $4. They sell it for $14 to fill that contract, and they're making money. So whenever Ottawa needs Alberta, they talk about Team Canada. But let's be honest about Alberta's role in this team. Ottawa's got us locked in the equipment room. We're hauling water bottles, and everyone else gets to play the game. And you know what? Albertans weren't meant to haul water bottles. We were meant to lace up, get on the ice, and carry the frickin' puck. So Albertans are told to carry the load for the team and to be quiet, but what they don't realize is Albertans don't do quiet. We do honest work, we do solutions, and we do community, and now we're doing sovereignty. So let me put these losses to Team Canada into perspective for you. $26.5 billion a year. That could wipe out every single personal income tax in Alberta. Gone. It could double pensions for every single senior in Alberta. It could build hospitals in every rural center. And it could still leave billions for schools, roads, and growth. So instead, Ottawa decides that they will siphon it away. And when people ask why sovereignty, the real question is how much longer are people willing to be bled dry? Some folks ask, can't we just fix this from within Canada? Can't we just cut a better deal? Let's give Danielle a chance. And you know what? I have respected and admired our premier probably as much as anyone. I've supported her efforts to negotiate a stronger place for Alberta within Confederation. But Albertans have been trying to achieve this for over a century. And every time, Ottawa has slammed the door in our face. Let me take you on a little historical walk through the history of Alberta's efforts to negotiate a stronger place in Confederation. Going back to 1930, Alberta finally won control of its resources, about 25 years after we joined Confederation and after Ottawa had already started to milk them. In the 1980s, Premier Lougheed, he did stand up to the National Energy Program, but billions were lost anyways, and Alberta's future was deliberately stifled. And then in 1987 to 1992, we had 2 attempts to open the Constitution, the Meech Lake and the Charlottetown Accords. Both failed. And why? Because changing Canada's Constitution is actually next to impossible. This is something I've learned from being involved in the APP that I didn't know just as a citizen of Canada. But to open up the Constitution, you need to clear 4 things. And in Alberta, that's very difficult. The first one is you need 7 out of 10 provinces to agree to open up the Constitution, and they need to represent more than 50% of the population. Well, Quebec and Ontario, they have 60% of the population, so that makes it really hard right off the bat. The The second one is that you need to have a majority vote in the House of Commons, which we do not control. And the third is you need a majority vote in the Senate, which is definitely stacked against us. And even if by some miracle you happen to get through all three of those first hurdles, the fourth one is the absolute killer. Because the fourth one is that you need to actually have Quebec agree to abstain from their veto vote. Quebec has a veto vote. So when Thomas Lukaszuk goes on an Okotoks podcast and he presents that our Constitution is a living document, that's absolutely ludicrous. Even if you're adamant about remaining in Canada but want a better deal for Alberta, the path is a vote on Alberta sovereignty. This is where we gain our leverage to negotiate from a position of strength. When we vote yes to separation from Canada, do you think that Canada will just let us leave? They will come to the table with a much better deal than we have now, and this is how we force their hand. And then once we do that, Albertans will get to decide, do we stand on our own 2 feet or do we negotiate to remain within Canada? But back to our timeline. Going into the 1990s, we had the Reform Party, which was born from Western frustration, and they tried pushing for decentralization. And what did Ottawa do? They basically just ignored them. In 2001, we had the Firewall Letter, which called for Alberta to control pensions, policing, taxation, things that probably sound pretty familiar because 24 years later, we're still asking for the exact same things. And then in 2019, we had the Fair Deal panel, which is basically the Alberta Next panel, which is going around recently, version 1.0. And they asked again for fairness, and the answer was more centralization. And then in 2021, we had the equalization referendum. 62% of Albertans voted to abolish equalization. But now, knowing the impossibility of opening up the Constitution, Ottawa shrugged, and they probably laughed at us, and they just carried on. And as of just like a month or two ago, we have the federal government sending out Jason Kenney with his messaging that this movement for a sovereign Alberta, where Albertans will have the freedom of self-determination and immense prosperity, is a selfish, divisive movement. I'd like to read you his actual quote. "It's bananas if we allow a tiny, perennially angry minority to drag the whole province through a deeply divisive debate. It would be a referendum that would divide families, divide communities, divide friends for no useful purpose." But I think that wanting prosperity and sovereignty for Alberta is not divisive. I think it's actually quite the opposite. I think it's actually unifying to pursue self-determination and freedom for all Albertans, irrespective of political parties and government coercion. It's unifying to pursue the respect and honoring of our faith, our family, and our freedoms. This is just another attempt by those who control us to keep Alberta divided. And after all, is not Jason Kenney the most divisive premier that this province has ever seen? And was he not fired by Albertans because of the divide that he created? So let's be clear. It's not that we haven't tried. For 120 years, Albertans have tried. And Ottawa's answer has always been no. And that's why sovereignty isn't reckless. It's actually responsible, because we're finally seeing the truth. And friends, if you've ever tried to fix the same broken gate on your farm year after year, only to watch it fall apart again, you know the frustration. But sometimes the only answer is to stop patching things and build something new that actually works. And that's where Alberta finds itself today. So let's bring it home. What does a sovereign Alberta mean for real Albertans? What does it mean for you and your families? Well, a young family of 4 would keep $20,000 to $25,000 more a year. That's big. In year 1, income tax could be cut in half, and by year 5, income tax could be completely eliminated. Seniors could see pensions nearly double, while contributions would be cut in half. And farmers could see the threat of fertilizer restrictions scrapped, carbon tax gone, input costs slashed. Workers could see opportunity right here in Alberta instead of heading to Toronto or to Texas. And imagine the power of writing a new Alberta Constitution together as Albertans, where property rights are protected. They're not protected right now. They're not even enshrined in our Constitution. Where balanced budgets are guaranteed and mandated. Where there's direct democracy with recall, referenda, elected judges, senates, oversights, and citizens' initiatives, which would bring the power truly back to the people. An Alberta, sovereign and free, would rank among the top 5 most prosperous nations in the world. In 2006, under Ralph Klein, we had an Alberta advantage. We had balanced budgets, zero debt, lowest unemployment, and the strongest economy in Canada. We've proven that Alberta First policies work. Imagine what we could do without Ottawa holding us back or standing in our way. Now, some folks also ask, one of the questions we get quite often is about Alberta being landlocked. Wouldn't we be landlocked if we were a sovereign nation? And the answer to that is, yeah, we'd be landlocked. We are landlocked right now. But the truth is, we're actually also handcuffed right now by our federal government. Ottawa controls every pipeline and trade route and trade agreement. In a sovereign Alberta, UN law guarantees us Tidewater access for our products to and from Tidewater with no tariffs. And then all of a sudden, our highways, our railways, our airlines, our pipelines, they become bargaining chips. They become tools we can use to negotiate trade agreements with the rest of Canada. And for once, Alberta would negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. We would have leverage and tools that we've never been able to access before. This isn't about tearing something down. It's about building something better together as Albertans. Since 1905, Albertans have been treated as a colony, and our freedoms have been chipped away. We've lost economic freedom through equalization, carbon taxes, and pipeline blockades. We've lost our voice in Parliament, the Senate, and the courts, and we've lost property rights, which are not even guaranteed in Canada's Constitution. We've lost personal liberties under lockdowns and mandates, and we've lost provincial sovereignty as Ottawa intruded into healthcare, policing, and pensions. But there is good news. What is taken can be regained. A sovereign Alberta would mean that property rights could be enshrined forever, and castle law, where you defend your home and your loved ones, could be protected. Where direct democracy with recall and referendum to create a governance system that is driven by the people. That faith and family freedoms could be constitutionally protected. The taxes would be slashed, and wealth would be kept here in Alberta, where it is generated by the ingenuity and drive of Albertans. This is the choice that's before us. We stay shackled to a system that erodes our freedoms, or we step into sovereignty and enshrine our freedoms forever. I think that a large portion of our planet is actually looking to Albertans right now. They're looking to you and me to lead them with some hope and some light. I think they want to see us form a sovereign, prosperous nation. But forming that sovereign, prosperous nation is a little bit scary. I hear that, I feel that, and we've never done this before. So the steps to it are a little bit overwhelming and scary. But it actually has been done hundreds and hundreds of times before in history. And lots of times it's been done with as little as parchment and ink. So right now, with the world's resources at our fingertips, I'm sure with the ingenuity and the drive of Albertans, this is something that we can get done, and we can do it very, very well. And we're working on it. I'm sure Mitch will share a lot about what's going on with the current process at the moment. So how does this happen, and how do we move forward? Our current path is that we're working through the Alberta Citizens Initiative Act and Bill 54. When our question is approved, and we anticipate that, we will need 177,000 signatures, and Elections Alberta will certify that and call a referendum. The question that we're bringing to Albertans is, do you agree that the province of Alberta shall become a sovereign country and cease to be a province of Canada? Once Albertans vote yes on that, Ottawa really can't stop us. Under Canadian and international law, the will of the people will stand. A constitutional conference will be called where Albertans, not Ottawa, will get to decide the foundations of our new country. An interim constitution is ready to spark that process, and the APP will release that very shortly. And it will protect freedoms, enshrine treaties, guarantee balanced budgets, build a government that answers directly to the people. This will serve as a starting point and a transition piece because our permanent constitution will be voted on and ratified by Albertans. So when people ask, can we really do this? The answer is yes, we can certainly do this. The Citizens Initiative and Bill 54 paved the way for us. The Clarity Act protects it, and international law supports it. Canada itself first recognized Kosovo in 2008 as a sovereign nation on nothing more than an independent referendum and a declaration of sovereignty by Parliament. A majority vote on Alberta's sovereignty would be recognized by other nations as well. We don't need Ottawa's permission. We don't need the provincial government's permission. We just need Albertans to stand together and in numbers so large that we can't be ignored. Samuel Adams was a founding father of America, and I love his one quote. He said, "It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men." And you are that brush fire. So there's 3 things I ask to keep this brush fire burning. One is that you sign your intent to vote yes at albertaprosperity.com. 2 is get 10 other people around you to also sign that so we can grow those numbers so large that we cannot be ignored. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to your coworkers, and get them to sign up. And then the 3rd thing is to carry the message forward. So wear the merch, talk about it with your colleagues, share it all over social media, make sure that we're spreading out and we're getting that message to everybody. Every kitchen table chat, every combine with an Alberta flag in it, every coffee shop conversation, they all count, and that's how brush fires spread. I think that our faith, our family, and our freedoms are worth this fight. And I want that when future generations look back, that they will see a people who did not bend to Ottawa, that they will see a people who rose, who united, and who built a sovereign, prosperous future. And I want our children and our grandchildren to say of us, they were the ones who planted the seed, who tilled the soil, who had the courage to harvest freedom. Thank you so much for coming today, and may Alberta be forever strong and free.
Thank you so much, Tanya. A real quick comment. Tanya was talking about how we were being greedy because we wanted to leave Canada and create an independent Alberta. And I'm going to quote my wife here. Why does everybody think that us wanting to keep what we earn is greedy, while those who want what we earn are not? Think about that. Our next speaker is Tim Hoven, or as I like to call him, Tim Young, because Hoven is Spanish for young. Tim is a rancher and farmer in the Eckville area, and he's a former county councilor in Reeve for Clearwater County. So I'd like to introduce Tim. He has a lot of good things to say, but I'm going to introduce him as a reformed politician. It's just an HDMI plug. Just unplug this. And plug yours in. This is an exercise in technology. You know, somebody once told me that's where I was born, is under a rock. One right there. And so, the microphone.
Great. I want to thank everyone for giving me a little leeway to be late. I decided I should go to church with the wife and kids today, so thank you. Now, I'm also recovering from a bad head cold. I went on holidays with my wife, and, oh, I'm getting the motion. I can't wander like I normally do. I went on holidays, and I came home with a head cold, so hopefully there aren't any sniffles or any awkward noises on the presentation. My name is Tim Hoven. I'm a farmer on the eastern edge of Clearwater County. My family moved up to Alberta in 1908 from South Dakota. I'm the 4th generation to farm the land, currently raising the 5th generation. My wife and I have 8 kids and 3 grandkids, with 1 on the way in January. So when I talk about Alberta Independence, I have a lot of skin in the game. My family's had a history here, and we've got a lot of potential future history that we're making right now. And I want Alberta to be the best place, the most prosperous place, the freest place on the planet. So if you're driving on a road, it's a beautiful day, and you're doing about 120 kilometers an hour, and off in the distance, you see that the road ends and you're going to fly off a cliff. Does it make any sense to slow down? Well, it'll save you a few minutes, maybe. But in the end, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to be flying off. So slowing down the road we're on is not an option for us. What is... Oh, I thought I was having a stroke or something with the head cold. That's funny. Back in early 2024, this report was leaked out of the Privy Council office, which is the Prime Minister's office. It's called Future Lives, Social Mobility in Question. What social mobility is? If you are poor and you work hard, can you go up from lower class to middle class? And if you're middle class and you work hard, you make good decisions, can you move from middle class to upper class? So, of course, the government did a report on that. And what they found, that by the year 2040, only 15 years away, it's going to be almost impossible for any Canadians to improve their social and financial life in Canada. Some of the things they found was that by 2040, people may start to hunt, fish, and forage on public lands and waterways without reference to regulations, not because they're outdoorsmen, because they have no money to buy food in the grocery stores. In 2040, owning a home is not a realistic goal for many. Most new homeowners get help from family members. Essentially, by 2040, homes are going to be unaffordable for the majority of Canadians. By 2040, people will see inheritance as the only reliable way to get ahead. Society increasingly resembles an aristocracy. Wealth and status passed down from generations to generations. When I read this, I don't think it's 15 years in the future. I think that's now. I've got sons who are looking to buy homes, and they're in a situation where they're going to have to save 30 or 40 years to get their down payment. That's not a future. The year before that, you can see March 20th, 2024, the secret RCMP report warns that Canadians may revolt once they realize how broke they are. Now, if you're curious, you can go to Google tonight when you get home. You can Google both these reports and download them and read them. This one is highly redacted, and most of it's blackened out, so you can't see what the RCMP really said. But the thing is, they're not talking about terrorists causing problems in Canada. They're talking about people like you being the problem for security into the future. The solution is don't go on holidays, apparently. Every time I give this talk, I look at what's new in the news about what the federal government is doing and how it's wrong and how it's hurting people. And every time I do it, the story gets worse and worse and worse. Right now, they're pushing Bill C2, which is for increased surveillance. Bill C8, where the minister, with the stroke of a pen, can take away your internet access. You can't go online, you can't access the bank, you're offline, you're dead to the internet. Bill C9, you can get jailed for doing a inappropriate, well, not even inappropriate, a political meme on the internet. Bill C21, gun confiscation. Bill C6 and C8, foreign spending and aid increased. Now, what is not a priority, which is what I think are the 5 things that are important to the people in this room: crime, immigration, affordability and the cost of living, protecting Canada's economic interests, responsibility and timely budget focused on austerity. The government does not care about you. They don't care about what's important to you. They don't care about your family's prosperity. All they care about is what's important to the institutions and the aristocracy that governs this country. This is the most important slide I'm going to show you today. Since 1968, the federal government has been increasing the money supply. So every year they've been printing an average of 8% more money, and what happens is when the money supply expands, the value of the cash you have decreases. Very sorry about the coffee, people. As the money supply increases, the value of your savings shrinks. So if you have $100,000 in cash on January 1st, 2024, in 1 year with 8% expansion of the money supply, the value of that money is only $92,000. A year later, it shrinks even more to only $84,000. In January 1st, 2027, the value of that $100,000 is only $77,000. Now, this is a really simplified way of explaining it. You could take a university course on this. But the government chooses and makes policies to expand that money supply, to keep the banks wealthy, to keep the wealthy people wealthy, and then all of us at the bottom of the economic scale, we're the ones that get screwed with the expansion. And we see not just our savings shrink, but the money that our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers passed down to us, that shrinks. Inflation is truly the greatest crime, or one of the greatest crimes, that the federal government can do to the people. My husband and I were talking last night about how a 12-pack of drinks is $9 now, and now in 2020 I used to buy them for $10. I decided to go back into my Walmart app and see what I was paying for a random grocery order. In January 2020, I paid $70 for 30 items. I added them back to the cart, repurchased them, and today those items were $165.42. That's a $95 increase in 4 years. That's 135% inflation. We can't go on living like this. I can't be the only one who feels this way. I went to Walmart in Sylvan Lake, and I had to buy pasta. So I go to the pasta section. There's about 10 people standing there staring at pasta. And this young mom comes up, and she says, "I know why you're all here." And I thought, well, because we all want pasta. But she said, and this just, you could have knocked me over with a feather, "This is the only stuff I can afford to feed my kids." That's inflation, and that is a direct action of what the federal government is doing to all of us. If you are towing a vehicle with a chain, where is that chain going to break? The weakest link. So if you have to fix that chain and you take money and you weld the second weakest link, or the third weakest link, or the fourth weakest link, you are wasting your money and resources. Because when you put pressure on that chain, it's still going to break at the weakest link. This whole Alberta Independence movement, for me, is to figure out what is the weakest link in our lives as a province, and hopefully soon a nation, and then trying to fix that. And right now, it is Canada, or Alberta's relationship to the rest of Canada. Your seat, your MP, your MP's vote is worth less than an MP's vote in Quebec, in Ontario. And see, this is the cold speaking. I'm getting my words mixed up. I apologize, everyone. Alberta, our MP, we have less MPs because your vote is diluted compared to a voter in Ontario, Quebec, or the Maritimes. We have less senators per capita than the eastern provinces. We don't really have a say on the Supreme Court. Quebec gets 3 seats, Ontario gets 3 seats, the rest of the country gets 4, and all of them are chosen out of the Prime Minister's office. So your role in this democracy is less here in Alberta than you lived in Ontario, Quebec, or the Maritimes. That is the weakest link. So what do you want the future to be? Because every time you vote, every time you spend $1, every time you give up a Sunday to come listen to talks, you are voting for what you want your future to be. In ancient Egypt, they have the myth of the phoenix. The phoenix was a beautiful, majestic bird, and it was very wise, very intelligent, and it would look out on the horizon, and when it thought that the end of the age was coming, that there was going to be some dramatic change, that things had run their course, it would make a beautiful nest, sit down in that nest, and then burst into flame until the nest and the bird were completely consumed and all that was left was ash. I think this is a very appropriate image for right now where we are in Canada. When I grew up, Canada truly was one of the best places on the planet to live. Canadians had a deep sense of pride, but right now, is there anything that's going good in this country? APP, yes. Everything is in ash. And we have a choice. We either rise out of those ashes or we lose everything. If we do not change the direction that this country, this province is going, we will lose everything. After a few days, the phoenix would come back to life, be more majestic, more beautiful, and would lead the whole world into a new glorious future. And that is what our Alberta has to be. What we become is up to us. And we can truly write a better future for not just for us, but for our children and our grandchildren. This is a painting I found on the internet. I'm not a big arts guy. So when I found a painting that really touched me, it inspired me, and I want to share it with you right now. You can see there's a man. He's on a rock. The painting is called The Flood. It's from 1827. And he's reaching down to save an old man that's drowning in the flood. But right next to him is his wife and his child. So he's ignoring his wife, he's ignoring his child, and he's saving his old father from death. Now, the point of the painting, struggling to save your past is your doom. He is trying to save the past, and in the end, he's going to fall off the rock. His father's going to die, he's going to die, his wife and his kid are going to die. And when we fight to save the past, we are throwing away our future. And I think that's so appropriate for us. So many people now are in love with this idea of Canada. They're in love with the idea of being in love with their country, that they're not looking at it realistically and they're not making proper decisions about it. You can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you cannot have both. Where we are in Canada, the easy thing to do is to go home, turn on Netflix, and pretend like everything's okay. That's comfortable. That's easy. But if we have an honest assessment of where we are and we want to improve this province for us, we're going to have courage, and I mean a lot of courage to go forward. It is useless to wait for a breakthrough, for the revolution, the nuclear apocalypse, or a social movement. To go on waiting is madness. The catastrophe is not coming, it's here. We are situated within the collapse of a civilization, and it is within this reality that we must choose sides. This country is going downhill. And it's not just a point of choosing A and B, which is better for us. If we stay in Canada, we will see our net worth decline, we will see our dollar decline. Everything about our lives is going to get worse. And the way it's going to happen, it's going to be like when you go broke. At first you go broke really, really slow, and then really, really fast, and you can't stop it. That's the decline that's coming here to Canada. This is a Reddit post from January 5th, 2013. There will be no collapse the way some of these people think of it. It's not going to be like the movie Dawn of the Dead or wherever or whatever, where one day suddenly crap hits the fan and prices skyrocket and everyone begins to riot and the SS come marching down the street to kill everyone. There will be no happening. It's far more insidious than that. Read the poem, The Hollow Men by T.S. Eliot, and you'll understand. Remember, this was written in 2013. You'll just notice that every day simple things will get a little more expensive. Everyone's homes and apartments will start to get smaller. Your work hours will get longer, but your pay will decrease. You'll see family and friends less and find that in time you care less about them. Every day you'll find yourself lowering your standards for everything, for work, for food, relationships, etc. Job security will no longer exist as a concept. You'll notice houses and apartments shrinking. People will start hanging on to clothing longer and longer. Less people will get married, even less will have children. People will engross themselves in technological distractions and fantasy while never truly experiencing the real world. Whatever dreams people used to have about what their lives are going to be will become for them a distant memory. The only thing left for them will be the reality of their debt and their poverty. And every minute of every day they will be told, you are stupid, ugly, and weak, but together in some glorious communist utopia, we are free, prosperous, and safe. That is the collapse, the reduction of the Canadian man and woman into a feudal serf, incapable of feeling love or hate, incapable of seeing the pitiful nature of his situation for what it is, or recognizing his own self-worth. We're in the middle of that. And because of the work of the APP, we have a chance to change direction and get away from this. We have an opportunity to give our children and grandchildren a better future. The future's coming whether we like it or not. It's inevitable. But what that future is up to us. So we all have to choose a side. To say you don't want to decide is to choose the status quo. And you might as well take your vote and hand it to Mark Carney and let him decide for you. We must choose a future to fight for. So what do you need to do? I've got three big things. Number one, you need to care. Because if you don't care, we don't have a hope. You need to have passion. You need to have some fire in your belly, and you need to make this the most important thing in your lives. Because when we pull this off, this will be one for the history books. And our future generations will be thanking us for every minute of effort and energy that we've contributed into this. Second, you have to radicalize your neighbors. You have to talk. It can't just be Mitch going around to little communities giving presentations. It has to be all of us together spreading the word. And third, we need to start preparing ourselves and our families for this. We need to start acting like we're free. We need to start being prosperous so that when it comes, we're ready for it. Two final points. This is for everyone in the audience who's over 40. At some point, you will have to stop running and take a stand. Either you, your children, or your grandchildren. Better you than them. If we don't fix this problem now, it's going to be up to our kids or grandkids trying to fix it. And they won't be as prosperous. They won't have as much money. They won't have the education. We have the opportunity to turn the tide. And for the people under 40, These are the ages of the founding fathers in 1776. James Monroe was 18, Aaron Burr was 20, John Marshall was 20, Alexander Hamilton was 21, James Madison 25, Benjamin Rush 30, John Jay 30, Thomas Jefferson 33, Thomas Paine was 39, and George Washington was an ancient 44 years old. So for all the people under 40 who are thinking this is an old man's game, it's not. This is a young person's game. And we need you to stand up and take the torch and make this happen. So that's it. Thank you very much for your patience. Sorry about the cough. And I should apologize to Max for wandering out of the camera view.
Thanks very much, Tim. Our final speaker this afternoon, look at that, I got that right. It's not this evening, but this afternoon, is Mitch Sylvestre. Mitch has been an advocate and dedicated the last 3 years to this project. I would like to say he's tireless, but that doesn't mean he doesn't get tired. Mitch is a businessman. He knows what he's doing. He understands the economic needs of the province. He understands where we would be as an independent nation, and he's eloquent in his defense of that particular mission.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. And you know what? This worked out pretty good this afternoon because the two speakers before me don't kind of waffle into my area very much. So that works out real good. Actually, Tim and I go back to the beginning of Take Back Alberta. That's how I got started in politics. 4 years ago, I didn't know the left from the right, honestly. I had to ask what the heck the left was as compared to the right and who these people were and actually what they stood for. It's very clear to me now. But however, let me explain what I do as I'm going to go into the path that got us here. And I'm going to explain to you, hopefully very clearly, who the people are that are bringing it and why we have to get away from these people. That's a concept that I want you to understand. We're not getting away from Canada. We're getting away from them. I'm in business. I've been in business for 47 years. I belong to two buying groups, two big buying groups. I belong to Source for Sports and actually belong to NBS in the US, which I sell guns and ammo. I'll just tell you that right off the bat. I sell all manner of sporting goods, all team sports, everything. We build jerseys. We do all of that. But I want you to understand that you have to buy well in order to be able to sell well. So I go to the US and I buy with a buying group in the US that actually gives me the same kind of buying power as Cabela's. We have 480 big US stores that are in our buying group, and we fly to Texas every year to buy product twice or three times a year. So the reason I'm bringing that up for you is I want you to look at Canada as a buying group. Because Alberta is a big part of Canada, and it's actually a business arrangement is the way that thing is supposed to work. So what NBS and Source for Sports do for me is they make me richer and better because we're buying as a group. And we're doing things as a group that we can't do as an individual. However, if NBS or Source for Sports said, screw Sylvestre Sports, we don't need them, that would immediately put my antenna up. Because that's the deal here. Canada's actually there to make us better. So let's hit one point. Quebec brings in thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands of oil every day from a foreign country. How does that work in our best interest? And that's just the beginning of it. This came up. I'll repeat it. We desire, every Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairies shall go to enrich our own people in the East. That means the stores in the East, not the stores in the West. If you want to take the emotion out of the issue, just think about it as you're in business in the West, and they're telling you that what we're going to do, your business exists to make the Eastern businesses stronger, but not the Western businesses stronger. And that's exactly what they're telling us. They're not even hiding it, and they mean it. To build up the factories and the workshops of Eastern Canada and contribute every way to its prosperity. So a sporting goods store in Quebec, according to that formula, would be much better off than a sporting goods store in the West. So being a business person, how long would you want to stay in that relationship? All right, we're looking at this. Confederation works the way it's designed to work. It is designed to work that way. It is designed to take the wealth away from the West and transfer it to the East. And what they've done is they've put safeguards into everything to make sure that that's the way it stays. Now just understand this. Western Canada has a population of 11.7 million and 24 senators. Let me break that down a little bit more for you. Alberta has a population of 4.4 million and 6 senators. Now look over here. Atlantic Canada has a population of 2.4 million and 30 senators. Half the population, 5 times more representation. How's that work? Same thing in the other house. We have 4.4 million people in Alberta, 37 federal seats, half 32 federal seats. How can you look after your own interests? How is it possible to look after your own interests? How is it possible to say that we're being greedy and selfish if this is what's actually going on? And it is. Let's move here. Again. Now you understand that we can't pass anything if the Supreme Court rules against us. And understand something else. All these judges are bilingual. You're going to say, what's that got to do with anything? Well, I'm going to share something with you. I'm French Canadian. French people tend to vote Liberal. Period. It's a trend. It's more than a trend. It's a reality. My parents and grandparents voted Liberal. I, however, do not vote Liberal, but just understand that it took 3 generations to break that. So, if they have liberal values and views and not conservative values and views, what do you think the odds are that if push comes to shove that they're going to vote our way? Exactly what's happening now, almost 0. Now, Tanya referred to the fact that I had a long week. Last weekend, I spent 2 full days writing a new constitution for the province of Alberta. And it was a long conversation, it was hard conversation, based on the fact that we had to deal with people that were academics with very strong ideas on how things should move forward, but then we had to be a little bit more practical so we could sell it to you and understand how much better an Alberta is going to be than it is now. I'll tell you one little bit about it that might make you curious. We put things in there that government cannot do. They can't lie to you, for example. Just understand how important that is, and you'll know in a minute. This is what's happening here according to Pierre Poilievre, so I don't have to be the heavy, but this is it. Nazi socialism, Soviet socialism, narco-socialism, and all other forms of socialism move at different speeds, but always to the same destination. This is the most important sentence you'll hear tonight. Impoverished hell for the many and special powers and wealth for the few. Every time this has happened in history, that's the way it ends up. Every time. Without exception. Those people, they are trying to take the wealth of Canada and Alberta for themselves and take it away from the people. Period. It's that simple. Only freedom, free speech, free enterprise, and free choice empowers all to fulfill their potential and live good and great lives. So you've heard the term the Great Reset. Right? Everybody's heard that term? I honestly believe this could go the other way. The Great Reset for them is to continue down this path. I've always thought in my mind that the Great Reset could go the other way. So that we could build a society here based on the values that we have and based on the opportunity that we have that could actually light the light for the whole rest of the world to see how good it could actually be without listening to that nonsense that's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. The bankers control the world. Like it or not, that's where we are. That's where we've always been, though. But it's getting worse and worse, and further down the line we go. So we're going to start here. I told you I was a gun dealer. Back after the War of Independence, they understood because they actually had to kill a lot of people to get this done. And they understood that having guns was pretty important. And it's not to shoot a deer or a moose. The big reason that you should have a gun is to protect yourself from government. That's what this says. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. A militia is a trained citizen army. That's what a militia is. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So you do understand that no matter what gun laws they bring down, and if they take the guns away from the honest people, they are still going to have guns, and so will all the bad guys. Now just understand that. That's not novel to anybody in the room, I'm sure, but just understand that's actually the way it is. But Doug Ford had his house broken into. And he didn't feel this way before that. Him and his wife were in the house. Somebody was walking around his house trying to steal his stuff. So now he really believes that you should be able to allow to shoot criminals who break into your home. That's castle law. There will be castle law in the new Alberta. It's in the new bill, right? It's in the new Constitution. I can tell you that. All right, let's go into the money, because this is what it's all about. It's really all about money. You having less, them having more. That's what this is all about. We pay $13.3 billion a year to Quebec. Every year. This is how it works. It says $400 billion, it's actually more than that. Alberta pays 12% of Canada, has 12% of Canada's population and pays 20% of the taxes. That means that we work 60 extra days a year for Ottawa compared to the rest of Canada. Understand something else. We'll get into pension and I'll mention it. I'll mention it now. Ontario auto workers work 36 hours a week. Alberta workers work, as a rule, 60 to 65 hours a week. We work more than them. At the end of the day, we get the same pension. Right? We work more than them, we get the same pension. And here's the deal. You can see the numbers right there for yourself. We overcontribute. Every year, we overcontribute by $3 billion a year. So, we pay $9 billion a year to CPP. CPP pays our seniors $6 billion back. So that $3 billion goes into a fund for Alberta pensioners. That's the key word here, Alberta pensioners. It says in the CPP Act, based on the fact that Ontario didn't want to pay more than their share, so what they said was, if we overpay, we want that money plus interest to go into a fund for us that we can call back at any time. That number for Alberta today is $400 billion, is what they owe us. Based on a 9.9% rate of return, which is what CPP claims to pay, that would be $40 billion a year in interest alone. Understand, we pay our seniors $6 billion a year. $40 billion a year in interest is a lot of money. We could stop contributing to the pension plan and still pay our seniors 6 times what they're getting now and grow the fund by $4 billion a year. And still have the principal. That's how much money that is. How come Danielle hasn't called it back? I've done 100 town hall presentations like this, 100 of them. And you want me to tell you what the number one thing everybody said? Hands off our pension. Don't touch our pension. How come nobody's yelling at Carney right now for using our pension as an asset to borrow money? Do you understand that if they don't cover that debt, your pension is gone? I understand it. This is 75 of these I've done. I've never had that person that he was talking about stand up and yell and scream and say, hey, you're a traitor, stay in Canada, this is all bad. But you know what? In 100 town halls on pension, I had a lot of them. Hands off our pension. Where the hell are they right now? Is what I want to know. That government is fudging the numbers so that they can borrow more money so that they can steal it from you. And that's what's happening. And we'll get right there. We lose $47 billion to Ottawa every single year, $40,000 per Canadian household. Okay, that's a meeting between me and the Premier at one of our town hall events. I can remember her distinctly looking up into the ceiling and said this: when I became Premier, I thought I could fix everything in 6 or 7 months, but everything is broken. So when you're the senior political person in the province of Alberta, and you say that you can't fix everything because it's broken, what does that mean? That means that it's corrupt. Too corrupt to fix. That's what it means. Let's go back to the last 10 years. Now, the trouble really started in 2015 when Trudeau got elected. When Harper left office, things were in relatively good shape. Now, I hope people in the room have the same impression of Justin Trudeau as I have. A lot of people think he's a buffoon, he's a clown, he's this, but I'll tell you what, Justin Trudeau, I don't feel that way. And I'm going to share this with you right now. Let's first of all understand what's at stake. What's at stake is the richest piece of real estate in the world. No one has what we have. No one has the oil, no one has the agriculture, no one has the resources, no one has the infrastructure, nobody has the people that are capable of making that all work, like Alberta. Alberta's got all the resources, but its biggest resource is the people. We are producers. We are workers. We can run farms. We can run the oil patch. We can do that. They cannot do that. Mr. Carney can't pull a drop of oil out of the ground. So I'm going to ask you a question. When we met with Parti Québécois, we both agreed the one level of government we could do without is the federal level, because they do nothing for us. And I don't mean this lightly. They are looting our treasury. They are stealing from us daily. They're criminals. They're organized criminals. When you understand that, you understand what the whole problem is for everything, and I'll go into it in detail. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. And here's the proof. Audit of $187 billion worth of liberal infrastructure spending finds 20,000 missing projects. 20,000. We're not talking about 100 of them. We're talking 20,000 missing projects. So they lied about 20,000, spending money on 20,000 projects, and got caught. Who went to jail? Nobody. So what does that tell you? They're above the law. Right? So we just got out of court this week, and we spent 3 days fighting. So I had a 2-day constitutional conference on the weekend and 3 days of court. And here's where Mr. Rath, our lawyer, actually told us justice. He said, here's the situation. The situation says that the Supreme Court of Canada has said that a question on the constitutional cannot be unconstitutional. If you rule it so, you will be breaking the law. But they're trying really hard to squash that question. So here's the way this is going to play out. They're either going to approve my question. If they don't approve my question, they will be breaking the law of Canada. And why don't they want to approve my question? Because they think we're going to win. And I can guarantee you it's a reality. We may win. But we've got them in a position, we, APP, has got them in a position where they're either going to approve our question and we'll go to a referendum because we have the people to make the signatures, or they're going to break the law and say you can't do it. And then that will make it clearer to a whole bunch of other Albertans about what's really going on. All right, let's go down this path. Gilbo, $254 million given to his own company. ArriveCan, a judge sealed the report for 75 years. Trudeau, $400 million lost in the green slush fund. That's why he had to resign. So that's why he moved forward. $240 million for a vaccine factory that never produced a vaccine. Now, I've got to $1 billion, right? I mean, I've just added up quick. 400, 240, 240 again. We're at $1 billion here that's missing. And I bet you I don't know the half of it. Can you imagine if that's what we don't know? Because I know that from being in business, that when somebody's stealing from you and you finally catch them, and it's happened multiple times in 47 years in my store. I mean employees now, I'm not talking about people on the street, because that's a daily event. What happens then is that you understand how much they're actually taking. And it's constant, it's a consistent thing. Now I want you to understand the other scam. I want you to look at this, clearly think this over. Who the hell would give $11 billion to overseas for gender projects? How many of you believe that this possibly could be money laundering? 11 billion, 11,000 million. 11,000 million for gender projects around the world. Do you think that's real? But I'll tell you what is real. The money left Canada, and once it left Canada, could you imagine how easy it is to hide it from that point? Just saying. Do you know why they buried helicopters and all that stuff after the Afghan war? Just think about this too. Like, why would you throw a helicopter into the sea? So you wouldn't have to count it? So they wouldn't have to come up with all the money that's missing because they're supposed to have bought all these helicopters, but they don't exist? Money laundering. I'm going to suggest to you, without knowing, that foreign aid is the biggest money laundering scheme there is. Period. So, when they tell you that we haven't got $4 billion, like they're going to cut $4.some billion out of our budget for veterans in the next 4 years, but yet they're going to have given $11 billion to foreign aid for gender programs, do you think that's real? We have to question these people every day. Now here's where it starts. This is where they started changing our society. This is right here is the beginning of this. Justin Trudeau said there's no core identity, no mainstream in Canada, and consequently that makes us the first post-national state. What's a post-national state? A state with no borders. A state with no borders, you can't control what's inside it. Right? How much harder is it going to be for us to get a hold of our MLAs or our MPs compared to our MLAs? I'm not saying I'm a high-profile political person in Alberta, but I'm one of the higher-profile political people in northeastern Alberta. I've never met my MP. Never met my MP. My MLA is in very close contact with us. What I'm saying here is by decentralizing government, they're making it harder for you to have a say and to talk to people that are representing you in government. So in 1954, and this is how it starts, right here. This is the first thing, the most important step, the ring that rules all of the rings. Control the information. In 1954, there was a statute in Canada that said it was illegal for the media to lie to the public. However, in 2019, Bill C-39 was passed, making it legal for the government to lie to you. Okay. Let's unpack that. So all of the people that are my age are used to having 90% of their current life where the media was telling them the truth. Now it's okay for them to lie. They used to go to jail for lying, understand. It wasn't a slap on the wrist. It was a real deal. Hitler, in the mid-30s, gave everybody a radio in Germany. And everybody thought that was being kind and nice. But what he was doing is controlling the message. So this allows our federal government, who's stealing money from us, we've proven that, the ability to control the message. And they do. This is step one. This is the most important step in conversion from democracy to socialism or communism. Control the message. Here's the next step, destabilize. Mr. Trudeau also said, old stock white Canadians are an unpleasant relic and quite frankly replaceable, and we will replace them. That's everybody in this room. That's us, the people that built this province. We're a what? Unpleasant relic. That would be me, a relic. It's an old thing. So he's going to replace them. And how does he do it? He's absolutely doing it. Look at the immigration. I'm not mad at immigrants. They're bringing in 2 million immigrants a year into Canada. 40 million people, 20 million workers, 22, 24 million workers. Divide that by 2. In 12 to 15 years, you can replace every one of us. And they're doing it. 1.94 temporary resident applications right now. This is this year. So they want to lie to us, they are stealing from us, and they want to replace us. So that's where we're at here so far. And they're taxing the hell out of us. 43% right now. We don't need to listen to that. I'll show it to you. How many taxes do you think you pay on a gallon of gas? 7. Okay? You pay 7 taxes on a gallon of gas. A gallon of gas should cost about a liter, sorry. You pay 62, that's showing my age there. I'm back to the other system. But at any rate, what we're doing is what we're talking about, a liter of gas should cost you about 62 cents. Cost you about $1.25 right now. By 2030, because with the increase in carbon tax, it's going to be more again, like almost another 20, 30% more. So this is the taxes we pay. Carbon tax, personal income tax, corporate income tax, GST, excise, fuel excise, alcohol excise, tobacco, cannabis, all excises, and there's excise tax on that gas, all of those. Customs duties, air travelers tax, luxury tax, provincial territorial tax, capital gains, land transfer, media, regulation, CPP, business tax, and inheritance tax. You want to talk about that? Capital gains. So here's the deal. If there's a farmer in the room, you'll get this. If your land, you bought your land at $30,000 a quarter when you bought it, and then you die 60 years later, and it is currently worth $500,000 a quarter. Let's round it off. Let's say $530,000 a quarter. There's a $500,000 capital gain there. Your children will pay 50% to 65% of that capital gain to the government so they can inherit it. Get that? So they don't want you to transfer your wealth to your children. Is that their business? This money that you've earned is after-tax money. Nowhere in the history of the world has it ever happened that people got to this level of taxation that they have not gone to war. And the reason we're not going to war is because we're relatively comfortable. We don't want to take a chance. But I'm going to make you a promise, and I know this is real. You're as well off today as you will ever be if you do not change what's happening. And I will also make you a promise, you will wish that you were this well off in 5 years. We talked about these bills, C2, C8, C9, and here's the result of that. When telling the truth is deemed hate, you'll know bills C8 and C9 have been passed. When have we as Canadians ever thought that we would be censored? And even worse, when do we ever think that we would allow it to happen? But we have a path out of this, and it's this. Let's go to COVID. This is the next step. All right, so we already know that they started to be able to lie to you in 2019 They rolled COVID out, and I'm not saying that lightly, in 2020. In 2020, the lies and the propaganda and all that nonsense started to come together. And they admit that COVID restrictions are about political control and power, not about stopping transmission and infection. Because we know, and we know they knew, they saw the Pfizer documents, they totally understand that they knew that those vaccines did not work before 2020. Okay, and that's just a whole other thing. You can look into that for yourself. The Pfizer documents by Naomi Wolf start there. All right, but here's what they did. Tim was talking about inflation and money. And we're going to get back to this a little bit later. I'm going to try and make this very, very clear to you so it sticks in your head. So, 2017, right after 2015, when Harper was in power, they could run the government and show $1 billion deficit. So now I want you to understand this. We're going to go back to business. Every year you lose money, okay? This is what's going on. 1, 19, 14, 39, 328, 90, 35, 62. So you're losing money every one of these years. And you're borrowing more. Just put that in your own personal life. You can't afford to pay your bills, so you borrow more money every year. And this is what? 9 years in a row. Right here in the middle, they print $328 billion with no audit. So Tim alluded to this, and I'm going to repeat it. This is how inflation works. When they double the money supply, the actual value of your money halves. And I'm just going to tell you this, do it or don't do it, it's your call. The hedge against that inflation is buying precious metal. They tend to go up more than 8% a year, so just FYI, if you've got money in the bank, I'm not saying to do it, but I would look at it. But here's what's happening here. So a box of, let's use a box of ammo that I sell in my store, used to sell for 29 bucks. Today it's 60 bucks. Remington Corlock 30-06, for example. Has your wage doubled in that period of time? There's the problem with inflation. The problem with inflation is the price of stuff doubles, but your wages stay comparably the same. So not only does the value of your savings go down, your purchasing power goes down half. And they're doing it on purpose. They know what they're doing. They're making you poorer. And here's the kicker. They voted to keep the cap on Canadian oil and gas. So how the hell are we going to pay for that bill if we can't create revenue? If you were going to pay a debt, would you try to cripple your business? But that's what they're doing. That's what we're dealing with every day. Carney just voted in a month ago to keep the cap on carbon. So what does that do to the Alberta oil patch? It shuts it down. So they're borrowing money, and we owe more, and they're cutting our ability to pay the bill. How's that going to end up? Exactly the way they want it to. And there it is. Slash oil and gas production by 5%, eliminate 40,000 jobs, reduce GDP by $20 billion. Our ability to pay is what they're doing. And here's the rest of it. Tanker bans, pipeline bans, blocking oil and gas investment. And it doesn't matter if we win in court, because we won against the C-69 and they're ignoring it. They are above the law. Did we elect kings? Anybody in the room elect a king? Does anybody in the room think it should be, a politician should go to jail for breaking the law? Hands up. Yeah, right? That's what we're dealing with. There's the rest of it, the tanker ban. You know that tankers go from Alaska to Seattle, right, full of oil? But we can't send Canadian tankers down the same coast. They go down the coast every day, but our government won't allow them to do it. Do you want to know why we're landlocked? Because they want us to be landlocked. And do you know why they want to keep the oil in the ground? So that they can break the country and buy our assets and resources at pennies on the dollar? That's why. That's what's happening. And then they throw a carbon tax at us. Again, what does that do? Stifles our industry. Our ability to pay bills. The carbon taxes cost Canadians billions over 5 years, hurting the economy while reducing CO2 emissions by 11.9 gigatons. China emits 11.9 gigatons every day and a half. So is this real? Why should we be doing this? And where does the coal to fire these things come from? Comes from here. China has 1,161 coal burning stations. So does anybody in the room believe that if that CO2, if it is a problem, which I'm not sure that it is, but let's say that we agree that it is, that they're allowing them to produce it and it goes up into the sky? Does it blow over here? So if it blew over here, why would we sell them the coal to do it if it was a problem? Look at how many we have. Do you know why you pay transmission distribution charges on every power bill you have? It's because they shut down the cleanest coal-burning electrical producing facility in the world in Alberta. And it cost $4 billion to do it, and now you're paying for it. And these guys have 1,161 of them. And look who's paying carbon tax. China's not on there. USA's not on there. India's not on there. Pakistan's not on there. That's 80% of the CO2 produced in the world. And it gets worse. So Norway came here years and years ago to study our oil patch and start an oil fund with the profits that they made for their oil patch. Today, they have, and I'm sorry this is incorrect, they have a $1.95 trillion US oil fund. 2 trillion, there you go. All right, so I'm off $500 billion, peanuts compared to 0.5. What's going on here? So we're $100 billion in the hole. And guess what? We produce twice as much oil as them. We produce 4.7 million barrels a day. They produce 2 million barrels a day. They have a $2 trillion oil fund in US dollars, and we're $100 billion in the hole. Norway just hit $2 trillion. There you go. A savings fund so big it equals $340,000 for every citizen in Norway. And they started way after us. And Tanya alluded to the fact that we're selling $4 natural gas to the US and they're selling it to Poland for $14. That could be part of the problem, right? Taiwan says we'll take as much oil as you can send us. But we can't ship it off the West Coast because that's the closest port to them. Meanwhile, the East Coast brings in oil from Arab states. But we pay them $13 billion a year to do it. Canada's the only country on the planet stupid enough to tax, carp, and ban the very industries that make us rich. And it gets worse. Anybody remember the ostriches? What happened? The bureaucrats decided that they were going to go over there and take that over that guy's farm and kill all his birds. And there's nothing anybody could do about it, right? Bill C-293 says, in the case of an emergency, that they can go to your farm and seize your land and seize your herd. Why would they pass that? So they could do it. In addition to everything else they're doing. They're passing these laws to make the nonsense that they continue and plan to do legal when they get there. Tariffs. China imposed what? A 78% tariff on canola and peas? Why? Because we tariffed a $10,000 Chinese car that nobody in Canada buys to allow them to put a 78% tariff on our canola so our farmers would be less profitable. You seeing a pattern? Here, look at, this is us, this is the US. That's investment in industrial machinery and equipment in the last, since 2015, from there to there. So we're not investing in industrial growth. And investors are leaving. Nobody's bringing money here because there's no case for it. We can't make money. And here's, if you don't believe it, here's the deal. GDP growth per capita, we're at the bottom. So our economy grew 1.4% in the last 10 years since Trudeau got into power. Who's ahead of us? Ireland, Poland, Turkey, 38, 39, 40%. How is it possible that with what we have, that we aren't growing? I'll tell you how it's possible. They're doing it on purpose to shut it down. That's the only way that works. That's the only way that works. They're shutting it down on purpose. So you can't work, and you can't get rich, or you can't get richer, so they can. And he hands the keys over to Mr. Carney after doing all those things that I was telling you about. Immigration, control the media, inflation, destabilizing our government, crowding our institutions, all stuff that's done on purpose. Now, we were warned, but you know what happened? We didn't have a free and independent press. Mr. Carney's book, Values, he tells you exactly what he's all about. He says Western society is morally rotten and has been corrupted by capitalism, which has brought about a climate emergency, right? This, he claims, requires rigid controls on personal freedoms. And assets will be stranded, used gasoline-powered cars will be unsaleable, inefficient properties will be unrentable. He promises this. And he ultimately wants a technocratic dictatorship. A technocratic dictatorship is when unelected big business is running your country. We're going to get to that in about a minute. Danielle's demands, zilch. Since he's been in business, 9 months, we've lost $85 billion in investments. We'll get back to that in a minute. 2,400 businesses bankrupt, 106,000 jobs lost, 12,500 Canadians died from AIDS. We're the biggest in the world per capita. We kill our own people. $60 billion lost in investment. Mr. Carney's got 103 conflicts of interest violations in the first 8 months since he's there. It is against the law for you to profit a business that you are in if you are in government. Okay, it is against the law. You can't do that. You have to declare the businesses that you own so that you don't do that very thing. Carney has secured 42 contracts since becoming Prime Minister. All contracts have been with Brookfield, which is the company he owns. So we've got a big company running Canadian politics. And he's talking about budget deficits for the next 6 years. He's going to put us in debt to the tune of $321 billion more than now, which is going to result in $329 billion in interest payments over 5 years. And a $1.6 trillion debt at the end of that. And he's crippling our industry, so we can't pay for that. And to top it off, he's going to incentivize us to not work. This is in the Senate. We're not making this up. A $93 billion a year universal basic income for those people that don't want to work. Every 17-year-old in Canada that sits in his apartment will get a $2,000 a month check. Can we afford that $93 billion a year to pay people not to work? And 17 countries have rolled out digital ID. We're right in the middle. All right. So that's as much bad news as I can share with you. And I mean, I know this is a very hard conversation. But here's the problem with that conversation. The real problem with it is it's true. It's happening. For those of you that walked into the room thinking, oh, well, you know, this is bad, did anybody think it was this bad? I know some of you do, but I bet you a lot of you don't. A lot of you didn't understand the depth of what was going on here. So we have a path out of this, and we're not going to get it again. We have a legal path out of this without anybody getting shot or any of that kind of stuff. Communism comes in with a promise and not with a bullet. This promise of $93 billion is the way they did it in China, the way they did it in Russia, the way they did it in Venezuela, the way they did it in all these countries. They tell people, oh, you're going to get all this wealth, all this money, everything is going to be good. And they get you in the trap, and then they shut the door. When you have to depend on them for your very existence, you're not going to fight them very much. And that's the problem. So this is what I'm going to share with you. I did a Prairie Rising conference in Regina about a month ago. There's a soldier that stood up there. And there's a picture of him on top of a roof. And he said, we had just finished killing the people in this, what turned out to be a school, that had murdered all those young women that were actually in this school learning. They weren't supposed to learn, apparently. And he said, we paid, and our forefathers paid for the freedom with blood. That was the currency of freedom. The currency of freedom right now, ladies and gentlemen, is your time. So I'm asking each and every one of you now, only way we get this over the top is for you to go to work and help out. I called a rally on the 25th of October on the steps of the legislature to show the provincial government that we exist and to show them that we were serious. We had 17,000 people show up. The next time we call a rally is going to be if they turn down our vote, if they turn down our question. I want there to be 250,000 people at that rally. We need you to show up when we call. I know how hard that's going to, that means stop everything. Hockey practice, even a day at work, whatever it's going to take to stop this, this is going to be the easiest way to do it. Because I'm asking everybody in the room for 10 days next year. When we call, we need you to come and stand there. Take up a spot. Be counted. Stand there and be counted as supporting what we're doing. And then we'll win. If we do not, it's going to get way harder farther down the line, because they're going to close these loopholes. Does anybody in the room believe that after blowing a 20% lead that we will ever get another conservative government in Canada? So we are on our own here. The politicians will not save you. We have to save ourselves. The reason I drove here is to share this with you, this very thing at the end here. That's the most important message I can give you. Sign up your intent to support APP so that we can find you. We're going to start talking to you every week. I'm going to start sending messages to all of you via text every week on the updates on what's going on, good or bad. That is what we need to do. That is the path forward. That is the only chance we're going to have. So internalize within yourself if you're willing to do that. Because because that is what's going to take. And you're also going to have to talk to your neighbors and bring them to an event and let me talk to them. I know I'm going to depress the hell out of them, but the whole thing is that the fact of the matter is what's happening. All right. The only person that's coming to save you is the version of yourself that's tired of the current situation. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, I think. Thanks so much. It's interesting, I think, that what you heard there might have left you thinking that there's no path forward, but I think Mitch was very clear. There is a path forward, and it relies on you and on me and on all of us to take that path and move with enthusiasm and effort towards our common objective. Now, right now, we're going to get ready for a question and answer session. We'll have the three of you stand and answer questions from the audience. You can stick your hand up and I'll bring the mic to you. And while we're doing this, we're going to pass around a bucket. And what we need to do with that bucket is we need to fund. These people travel all over the province. There's a lot of things. There's stuff that we have to make. There's flyers. There's all of these things. So we would appreciate, dig into your pockets if you can and help us out. Now, right now, the floor is yours. You can ask them any question you want, and they will answer it honestly and completely. I know because I've heard them do it before.
Where do I spend? More this way? All right. Okay,
So if you have a question.
U.S. dollar is probably the way we're going to go. That's a frequently asked question. I don't know what else. U.S. dollars, Tanya dealt with the landlocked. Understand we're policy locked. That's a big one. Anybody got any questions?
If you have any
about
questions, come
anything?
back and stand right here, and you get a chance to grill these three wonderful people. You have a question?
Okay, my question to you is, I work with a bunch of jackasses who are all on the left side. So how do we get people to believe in this vision when the media is so dead against this?
Well, it's going to be a one-on-one conversation. That's the only way to do it, or bring them to a meeting. Like when we find that if we get people in the room, the very least that's going to happen is they're going to leave with some kind of idea that something's not right. And then once they start looking around for it, it becomes very obvious of what's going on. But they can share the live stream. Yeah, or you could share the live stream here today if people are interested in listening to that.
If you have a question, you have an alternative, you can come here, or you can stick your hand up. I'll bring the mic to you.
Another thing maybe on that too is that I would share, like one of the unifying concepts I think to everybody in Alberta is the economics of it, because that hits home in like your own pocketbook and your family's pocketbooks. And that's something that's not divisive between left or right or political movements. So you can go online to albertaprosperity.com, and we have a lot of educational resources there. There's trifolds, there's postcards, there's all different kinds of things you can print off if you want to share that. And then having that one-on-one conversation showing this is the economics of what a sovereign Alberta could do as kind of the opening part. Because the freedom-minded thing isn't always resonating with people that are polarized on different political spectrums, but the pocketbooks really hits home for everybody.
And I totally agree with that. So that's probably your open place to go, is that you talk to them. Look, you're paying 43% tax right now. You could lose 30% of that in year one. So you're going to get, if you're making $70,000 a year, $20,000 a year raise, like on day one.
I just got a question. We hear all the time about borrowing more money. The government's borrowing. Who are they borrowing this from? Where's it coming from?
Well, that's a really good question, actually.
Nobody's
I've
ever
been
been
chasing
able,
that.
nobody's
Okay,
ever able to answer that.
So well, because it's on purpose that you can't answer that. So let's build the case. So what they're doing is they're borrowing money that they're creating out of thin air, right? There's no money being exchanging hands here. So they're actually printing a number on a piece of paper, and we have to pay interest on. So I totally understand. I know who that is. The people that they're paying that to is the World Bank. The people that are, do you know that the Fed in the U.S. is a private company? They actually print money for the U.S. government that the U.S. government buys from them, and they have to, and then they owe them money for just printing the money. So that'll give you some kind of an idea. So just goes way back to the days of, even biblical times when Christians were not allowed to charge interest on money. So then who became the bankers? Well, here's the thing though, sir. What you've got to understand is any nation in the world that has tried to start its own currency has gone to war immediately, including Russia right now. So just understand that. The people come up to us and they say, hey, are you going to print an Alberta currency? Well, no. Actually, we don't want to go to war. And we can't. We have no way to defend ourselves, basically, if we're outside of Canada, at least in the short term. So this money is owed to them, a fictitious group of people, that they're going to print this money and we're going to send them $329 billion over the next 5 years of our wealth and interest payments. And that's a big part of the problem. The big part of the problem is that it's hidden out there. And if we balance our own budget so we don't have to create this money, then we don't have to pay it. That's the other thing. So yeah, so that belongs to the same people that own the Fed in the U.S. And I would say, I know who it is. Just look at the Bilderberg Group. Just do some research on that. I'm really not about to call them out here in this room.
Do you mind if I call them out a little bit?
No, go hard.
You might want to look into Rocco Galati. He's a Canadian lawyer who sued the Bank of Canada because Canada is one of the few nations that can borrow from itself. We have that facility, that mechanism exists. And Rocco Galati sued the Canadian government for borrowing from the Bank of International Settlements. And if you look into the Bank of International Settlements, it's making big moves today in the digital sphere and all these things that you hear going on. Look into Rocco Galati's work. He's all over the internet. It's very well worth your time. But it is a financial battle that we're in. I find it interesting, if you don't mind a comment.
No.
About Carney. I don't know his position. Maybe with the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, but was it governor?
He was the head of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, too.
There was another governor of the Bank of England back in the turn of the century, early 1900s. I can't remember the year. And he spoke to all the assembled private bankers in New York, Jacob Schiff, J.P. Morgan, those sorts. And he said that, I think the quote goes, we are using the two-party system to keep the people occupied with matters of no importance while we go about our business. So it's just, there's one other thing. Who designed this logo for your sweaters? It's beautiful, with the Alberta prairie.
Oh, that was, yeah.
There's one thing that's notably lacking. Above the sky, you see the beautiful prairie and the wetland and the foothills and the mountains. There's one thing missing, which I appreciate, and it's this white red cross, which is the symbol of the city of London and the banking district of the British Empire. If you want to free Alberta, you have to remove that symbol from the flag.
Well noted. That actually was intentional on the logo.
I have an observation that I resonate with everything that's been said here. And I listen to what you are projecting for Alberta. And yet, there is an emerald out there, a country that is actually setting a standard for us all. And have you ever heard of El Salvador?
Yes.
And that, as soon as I sat here and I listened to everything you said, there is a jewel in the world right now that we should be all learning from and listening to. And I noticed you even talked in your comments about one of the things that we could be doing. You mentioned specifically gold. Well, El Salvador is doing something that's very, very different. It's even more precious than gold. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to let everybody hang and find out what that precious thing really is.
I was actually on holidays in El Salvador where I got this cold. It is an amazing country. The president, you know, I used to be kind of on the fence with how Danielle's been doing. Like, used to really like her, and I'm like, I don't know. When you see what the president has done in El Salvador in 5 years, you will be so disgusted with our politicians here that we are still stuck in the mud. They had such a gang problem. I listened to a talk from a coffee farmer, and he left El Salvador, went to the States, and his dad left his dad to run the coffee farm. They had to pay about 15 to 20% interest on their line of credit with the bank. And then when the gangs came, you had to give them whatever they asked or else they'd kill you. And you can't have an economy like that. So they elected Bukele in this, just about a miracle. The first thing he did, organized the army, declared a state of emergency, and set up a 1-800 number where if you knew where a gang member was, you called them and the army went and arrested them. They arrested 80,000 people. And now El Salvador is the safest place on the planet. So my wife, my 2 young kids were walking around in a third world country. I'm meeting, you meet people on holidays. I met so many ex-Canadians who had moved there. And this one guy said, I feel safer walking downtown San Salvador than I do when I go back home to Toronto and have to walk to the 7-Eleven. It's amazing what good leadership can do. And we can't forget that, and we need to demand better from the people leading us. And what they've done with Bitcoin, it's going to revolutionize the world. It absolutely is. And we are right at the very beginning of it. And everything that's going on with the banks, the SWIFT, the BRICS, they are all trying to move to kill it because they know a decentralized currency is the way for people to be free. And I would love Alberta to have the US dollar and Bitcoin as the official currencies.
I agree with that. In fact, when I come here and I talk to this man at first, that's what I was getting at, because I said we will never, ever truly realize true freedom until we have financial freedom. Bitcoin is the only means of us having our own self-sovereignty. It's immutable, it's unchangeable, and like I can speak because I've benefited from it. During this whole COVID fiasco, I have prospered because of Bitcoin. And I've been through the ups and I've been through the downs, but if that is what true hard money really is.
The poor people in El Salvador, before they had Bitcoin, they were so poor they couldn't get bank accounts. So they had no way of saving money. So their whole family was just destined to be poor. If they ever got extra cash, they would go to the hardware store and buy cement cinder blocks. That was their bank account because they knew when they needed money, they could sell the cinder blocks for what they paid for them. And that's how they stored their money. That was their life savings, the cinder blocks. Now with Bitcoin on their phones, everyone has their own bank account and everyone is saving money. Kids want to stay in school now because they can have hope for a future, and they know that if they learn, it will change their entire family's history into the future. It's amazing what's going on there.
Go figure.
In regards to the comment of how to wake up the people around you, one of the things that has worked for me was when I found getting a proper understanding of the financial system through goldsilver.com. They've got a great series on YouTube from Mike Malone. And when you really get that, you realize all of our left or just anybody who's been through any education in this country does not know how money works intentionally. When we get that freedom, so that's another common talking point where you can wake people up with, is just asking them very pointed questions about how money works. we will very quickly be stumped. That's something that should cause a high state of alarm.
So gold is the currency of kings, silver is the currency of artisans, and debt is the currency of slaves. And I heard that at an event that I was at, and it really stuck with me. How many people are not in debt in our society? Good for you guys. Oh yeah, and some guys are really not in debt, I get that. Go ahead.
Anybody else? Just while I move over here to take this question, if you're all too shy, if any of you are too shy to talk to your neighbors about the Alberta Prosperity Project, buy a hoodie with APP on it, and you don't have to say anything.
So, I came over here from Australia. My process getting here was insane. It took a long time, a lot of money, had to have English tests, had to have everything. And then we see what's going on, and it's just a kick in the face, right? So then, you know, Trudeau's gone because so many people woke up. Now Carney's in. To me, he was placed there, in my opinion. He is pretty much a financial, like, hitman, an economic hitman. He destroyed the UK, and now he's here. Everyone in this room can probably tell that that's why he's here. It's not really a question, it's kind of a concern. Like, obviously, our Premier knows what's going on. This is why she's trying to fix things. We have this group as well, and I'm sure you'll talk with her and stuff. But is she safe? Like, when people from other countries try to go against their governments, they get taken out. We've seen it. During COVID, there was like 5 presidents who were assassinated, you know? And like, you know what I'm saying though, right? Like,
I absolutely
like
know what
I
you're
just
saying.
hope she's really, really safe and she has a lot of protection around her. But yeah, I'm like, I'm an Aussie, but I'm a freaking Canadian through and through. It took me a long time to get my citizenship.
So,
Yes.
so first of all, let's address immigration. Every immigrant that I talk to, Filipino, Asian, African, feels exactly like you. They are pissed. Okay, so there is a court case in Bonneville, Alberta, in the next couple of weeks for the guy that death threatened me, and it happens all the time. So just understand we're aware. Okay, and here's the thing. If you guys would hurry up and let's get this done, it would help us a lot. we may make it through.
Yeah, I think she's as safe can be, but they got to Charlie Kirk, they got to everybody. Like,
Yeah.
nobody is actually safe from this, right? But also, at the same time, too, we also don't need permission from government to go ahead and do this. So yeah, we need leaders that will, you know, shine some light on it, but if they're not shining the light and doing that, we can still get this done regardless. Yeah.
Right. And I'm also very aware that the Premier's very aware of that. So just so you know.
Yeah, I hope she's very safe.
She's very aware.
Okay, I'm just thinking about our educational system, and of course, all our teachers, all our medical system, they're government employees when it comes right down to it. Now, last summer, I had a pile of Canadian Tire money that I collected for years, and you know, the summer before I counted it up, and I thought, stuck in my mind that I had $23 and some cents. So, took it with me to Canadian Tire. Handed it in and said, you know, here's part of my bill. Well, the cashier had to call her supervisor in order to count 5 cents and 10 cents and 25 cents and $1 and another nickel and a dime. And she, between them, well, in the end, I wound up with like $10 because they can't count. We're not teaching our children to do anything. And our school systems are based to the least of the bunch. And I think we really need to look at education in a new Alberta. That we need to set high standards and that it can't be government operated. That's just my thought.
Yeah, and I agree with you too. I'm actually a teacher by trade. Lots of times I found that I was kind of a square peg in a round hole around conversations in the coffee room. But fair enough, that's the way it kind of worked out. I think that the coolest part about forming a new nation is not necessarily even the economics of it, but it's that we get to create everything the way that Albertans want based on our values and what we feel strongly about. So to me, creating a new education system, something maybe where it's more merit-based, where maybe the dollars follow the students, where there's a little bit of competition, an incentive for the schools to create some communities that the parents want to send their kids to, that would be super beneficial. And yeah, we've got all those possibilities. There's like an interim process where we have to like transition into the new Alberta, and then all those discussions get decided upon by Albertans and ratified by us. So I think that should be brought to the table 100%.
The WEF is heavily involved in Alberta Health, right? And the education. So is that going to
Well,
be
Carney's on the board of directors of the World Economic Forum. Trudeau is an absolute member of the World Economic Forum. And let me put it to you this way. I don't know what's going on in AHS, but I'll share this with you. We give them a $26 billion check a year and then walk away from it. That's how AHS gets paid. Danielle's trying to work around that. And here's just a little bit of snippet of information that I have. My cousin was on the health board in Bonnyville. He said that a chair that you could buy at any retail store for example, $100, if you buy it through AHS, is $160. So procurement is a big problem with AHS, and I know that they're going through it right now. But I have heard that there's a possibility that organized crime has something to do with AHS. And I don't know that for a fact, I've just heard that. Take that for what it's worth.
Hey, I just wanted to say something. I went to Atchison yesterday morning to do the slow roll around the whole Anthony Henday, and we ended up in Nisku. And when I got out of my truck and started, I could hear a helicopter, and I looked up, and there was the RCMP helicopter flying around. So they must have followed us all the way from Atchison during the slow roll. So I had to pull my head out of the sand so I didn't look like an ostrich.
Just to add on to that, it's been my observation over the years that when one has their head in the sand, another part of their anatomy is exposed.
All right, let's wrap it up, guys.
Okay, I think probably we've probably run out of questions. I'd like all of you to please give a real big thank you to Lacey and her family for organizing this. And a thank you to each of our speakers for the time they've taken to come here, the effort they put into making their presentation, and the research that they've done over the years that allows them to do it. Thank you very much for the three of you. I'm pretty sure the coffee's still on, so thank you so much for being here.